my dear friends. Today we are going to continue the previous discussion with another interesting topic. So the previously discussed topics by Ms. Patricio and Abogada are literary theory, literary approach, feminist approach, common space, and feminist theories in the waves of feminism. So as you can see, we are touching more on feminism. So before we proceed to our objectives for this video, let us first redefine feminism. So what is feminism? Feminism is by definition a social, cultural, political movement that has sought to address the prejudices, perceptions of women and their legal rights in the society. So feminism examines women in literature, but it's not just women, it's really the tension between the male and the female imagery within a piece of literature. Thus, this approach examines how both symbols are treated. Are the female symbols being diminished, being pushed down, being suppressed? Are male symbols being championed? Well, that's usually the case in what we discover in this matter. But in feminism, you're going to see words like patriarchal a lot. So patriarchal comes from the word patriarch, which means father. So in feminist criticism, you're going to be looking for the ways that fatherly figures or strong male figures seem to dominate and control the literature. So the goal of feminism is to expose that and to point out that females are not treated as fairly. Now, just a reminder that this criticism not only surrounds around the tension between the male and female characters of a story, but deeper than that, we are analyzing the symbolisms used that is attached to a male or female symbol. Now, I think that we are all ready to pack up for another topic, which will be Elaine Showalter's feminist identifications, which we are going to talk about the four models: the biological model, the linguistic model, the psychoanalytic model, and the cultural model. Next to that is Elaine Showalter's theory, which includes the three major phases of development: the feminine stage, the feminist stage, and the female stage. And lastly, we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of applying feminist approach to literary criticism. So we will be starting this discussion by introducing the woman behind this theory. So Elaine Showalter was born in January 21st, which is an American literary critic, feminist, and a writer on cultural and social issues. She influenced feminist literary criticism in the United States academia, developing the concept and practice of gynocritics, a term describing the study of women as writers. Elaine Showalter's feminist identifications. Start this discussion by understanding a few terms Elaine Showalter's coined. First is we have the gynotext, which are texts written by women. On the contrary, androtexts are texts written by men, and gynocritics is the study of gynotext. So these are the important terms that you need to understand in understanding the contribution of Elaine Showalter. So the first model is we have the biological model, or the woman's writing and the woman's body. So the biological difference is the most basic difference between the male and the female. Now, according to Elaine Showalter, that you find that these difference has created a narrative in the history of literature. She stated here that this difference is considered an inferiority. And generally, we find that this point of view regarding women, we find that there is a common view that women are not so strong. They need protection, they need patronage. And she breaks these narratives because she thinks that they are the strong points for women. Now, female is a resource. So this is the thing that Elaine Showalter talks about. Female body is not an inferiority. Female body cannot lack in anything, but it is a resource of creativity. Next is the special asset denied to men. What men receive is for men, but what women receive is denied for men. So women have special qualities. So she is making strong points and that said weak points of women. Thus, these qualities are great for women. And lastly, she said that women think differently. So based on their different abilities, different kinds of qualities have been bestowed upon women. So they have different experiences that men cannot. And these differences are their strong points. So next is we have the women's writing and language, or the linguistic model. So the next important thing is we have the language. So whether men and women use language differently. This is the very first question that she possessed, and the very straight answer that she gave is that yes, there is a difference between the language of men and women. So what kind of difference is that? So she said that these are the oppressor's language or the sexist language. So men basically use this language of portraying women. So if you find in the traditional literature, the picture of women which is created in the literature is through the language of men. It is through the point of view of men, and hence she rejects that view. Men's language is a foreign language. Many feminist writers also think that men's language is a foreign language for women, and based on that language, women cannot create their own identity, so they have to create their own language. And next is we find that there is a need of women's language, and this need is to be fulfilled by creating a different style. They gave importance to creating a different language from the traditional language. Next is we have women's writing and women's psych, or the psychoanalytic model. So this psychoanalytic model, we can simply state that the most essential and basic difference is psych. So we directly said here that there is a basic difference, an essential difference in the development of the psychology of women. And this psych we found in traditional literature that women lack in certain qualities, and women do not have the mental strength, and that women are developing way more different from men. And this is common in traditional literature. So men think that women lack, and hence they have these disadvantages. And these theories are basically based on Freudian and Neo-Freudian analysis. And when we study Freud or psychoanalysis, we find how Freud gave importance to the different psychological development. And here we also have the same development in women, and we have here his concern is about the Oedipus or the Electra complex. And lastly, we have the women's writing and culture, or the cultural model. So this is one of the comprehensive and complete model, and the intermingled with other fields. So why is this comprehensive and complete model? So we find that there is disagreement among many critics with regard to this model. So here we have a quotation of Elaine Showalter, which she straightforwardly says that how this model is comprehensive and complete. So the female psyche can be studied as the product of construction of cultural forces. A cultural theory acknowledges that there are important differences between women as writers in their class, race, nationality, and history, and their literary determinants as significant as gender.
Elaine Showalter's theory.
So Elaine Showalter becomes significant in feminism because she also talks about the phases of feminist. So Showalter calls the first phase as feminine. Showalter calls the first phase as feminine, or spanning from 1840 to 1880, a phase of imitation when women writers like George Eliot wrote with male pseudonyms by which her real name is Marianne Evans, because she wanted her work to be taken seriously, especially by the male community. If she had used her own name, it would not have been. So this was a time when women writers were unheard of or ridiculed. This was the time when women couldn't be women. So if she were to publish a book under a female name, not only would she probably not have sold many copies, but she and her family probably would have been blacklisted from the society and insulted. Her intelligence and writing style would have been mocked to no end. So the second phase is the feminist phase, which spanned from 1880 to 1920, the phase of protest, when women won voting rights. Now in this phase, which denotes political involvement, women writers questioned the stereotypes and challenged the restrictions of women's language. They embodied a declaration of independence in the female tradition and stood up to the male establishment in an unspoken manner. Now lastly is the third phase, or the female phase, in 1920 till around 1960, when women's writing entered a new phase of self-awareness. Now the focus here is on women's texts or their own texts as opposed to merely uncovering misogyny in men's texts.
Feminist approach advantages. Women have been underrepresented in the traditional canon, and the feminist approach to literature attempts to address this problem. Feminist approach disadvantages. Feminists turn literary criticism into a political battlefield and overlook the merits of works they consider patriarchal. And again, these are the topics that we've discussed. Thank you.